excited to have Merlijn here, and
I'm excited to have Merlijn here too. I love following his posts on Facebook.
Thank you very much for your kind words, sir. Merlijn is also excited of being here. I never talk about myself in the third person, but I can try. Hey, Nathan.
Oh, hey.
I'm gonna ambush Nathan
All
by
right.
letting him know. I'm gonna ambush Nathan by informing him only now that we're gonna talk about Tracebook a little bit. Because had I known that Nathan would be on the call, which I'm not surprised, then I would have briefed him earlier that I'm gonna seize the opportunity to pitch Tracebook. And so Nathan can also speak to that, which is great.
I am a member of the Dave Rat community, so I knew this was coming up.
Awesome. It's great to see you back again. We hang out all the time now.
Nathan, are you in the Telegram chat?
I just joined it.
Right on.
So yes.
Awesome. Cool. Well, let's go ahead and get this going. Off to you, Merlijn.
Well, if you would like me to start, I'm good to go.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so before we're going to look at AS75, I briefly want to take a moment to raise your awareness of a community effort that is going on for several years now that is called Tracebook. And I'm happy that Nathan is on the call, and I'm going to give Nathan a free pass to interject at any moment and share his thoughts on the matter. But both Nathan and I, as well as yourself, we dwell social media and whatnot. And very often, especially people that are new in the field of measuring loudspeakers and sound systems, they oftentimes ask a question on various fora, such as, is this loudspeaker supposed to measure like this? And so they do some measurement, they get some data, and they don't know what to make of it. And they wonder whether that measurement is kosher, for lack of a better description, or is pure BS. And so that happens very often. And for me, and maybe Nathan has other thoughts about it, but for me, I find it interesting that, if you take a measurement of a loudspeaker, it's like taking a photo of an object. And if I take a photo of a baseball, I expect to, see something that is reminiscent of a baseball because I happen to know what a baseball looks like. But if I do a measurement of a loudspeaker and I don't know what the frequency response and phase response of the loudspeaker is supposed to be, how am I going to be able to identify whether that's a pretender measurement or a contender measurement, for lack of a better description? And so we came to the idea, Nathan and I, a long time ago, to start a community resource, which we call Tracebook, which is a repository that you can consult by brand, make, and model, to look up what is a measurement of loudspeaker XYZ supposed to look like, such that if you measure that same product in your venue or in your environment, that you have something that can serve as a frame of reference. And that is basically the short story of it. The other reason that motivates us also is that there are some data sets out there that are being provided by manufacturers which are somewhat incomplete. They may have a magnitude response, but they may not have a phase response, for example. And there's a time and a place why you would want to see a phase response. And so in those cases, there is no collateral that you can consult to acquire that bit of information. And so there are omissions, if you will, in the data sets that we can access, even those that are provided by manufacturers. And so that was another reason why we founded Tracebook. Now, before I show you what Tracebook is, I'm going to ambush Nathan because I'm somewhat unprepared for this meeting, even though I knew that this was coming for weeks now. So I'm briefly going to ambush Nathan to correct me or augment me on basically what prompted us to do this, because all of this is happening under the leadership by Nathan, as well as some other fellow audio professionals. So Nathan, did I leave something out?
No, I think everything that you said is correct. I think it goes all the way back to education, starting with classes with Bob McCarthy, where he would say, how do you know what you're measuring? How do you have some confidence in the data that you're seeing on the screen? And then Merlijn talked about that in his classes as well. And So sort of this idea of us needing some reference that we can hold on to when we're doing measurements of the field or trying to, figure out what we're looking at or what we're doing. I think the idea has kind of been out there for a while, and I think we finally just decided to take action on it.
Right.
There's a great video that we did a couple of years ago when we first launched Tracebook that I'll put a link to in the chat that has a lot of use cases, because I think that's really the question on people's minds when they first hear of a product is like, well, what do I do with it? What can you do with it? And we could tell stories about that, and there are a lot of use cases, and I use it on every show. But this is a better like long form video that you can watch at your own leisure that has a lot of those stories.
Right. Yeah, I oftentimes makes the comparison with musicians, right? If you ask a violin player to describe their instrument, you're going to get an 8-hour lecture because that violin player knows everything that there's, is need to know about his instrument. He can tell you about its temperament. He can tell you how the violin behaves different when it's hot or humid and whatnot. He can tell you about the varnish that they use for the instrument, and the list goes on and on. He can tell you about the smell of the instrument. And or you could ask a guitar player to talk about his amplifier. You're probably also going to get a 4-hour lecture about its temperament and whatnot, and how it behaves when it comes off the truck, when it's cold outside or when it's hot and whatnot. And so, to me, it's always quite entertaining that when you ask a audio professional that works on a daily basis with the same products, and you ask them describe to me the phase response, that you get crickets and tumbleweed, right? They don't know what the phase response is of their loudspeaker, oftentimes. And I find it quite interesting if you consider that they work with those products on a daily basis from one venue to the next venue. Anyway, be it may, that is, in a nutshell, a little bit of the impetus for under the leadership of Nathan, for a group of audio professionals getting together and coming up with Tracebook. And Tracebook is not monetized. It is an initiative by the community, for the community, a repository that you can consult whenever you do, want to find out, want to have a baseline reference of any loudspeaker that you find yourself working with on any given day. And so without further ado, I'm going to share my screen, which you should be able to see. Hopefully somebody can confirm. And there we have it. The URL is trace-book.org. It is a community that is over 6,000 people strong. And right now it has 309 approved measurements. Over here, we see a couple of measurements, which is by no means staged or set up. This is just what pops at the top. And we can click in those into those loudspeakers, and then we can look at their responses. And for example, okay, just arbitrary example, if we were to click into this loudspeaker and we can search for that, for brand, make, and model and whatnot, we are going to see magnitude response, and we're going to see phase response, and we're going to see an impulse response. Accordingly, with extra information about how the measurement was made, at what distance, using what microphone, which audio interface, and whatnot. And we can download this measurement in various file formats that we can then directly import into our own analyzer software for reference purposes. And so that is basically the spiel, and everybody can upload a trace if they want to. And of course, we hope that after everybody having seen this call, that more people will do so. And we can search, like I said, and there's an important thing to understand about this, that is that all these measurements are subject to moderation. And that means that every measurement that is uploaded to Tracebook needs to be reviewed by 2 moderators. And the moderators have to observe certain criteria that need to be met in order for inclusion into the database. And that is why some of these measurements have an indication that says approved, which means that the measurement has been reviewed by the moderators. But some of the more recent measurements that were uploaded early this year, you can see that their status is still pending, which means that the moderators need to go to work and moderate those measurements. It should not come as a surprise that both Nathan and I are moderators as one of the people behind Tracebook, but we have extra roles. You may notice that these uploads consider Meyersound loudspeakers. And as moderators, we agreed, since I'm a Meyersound employee and I might be possibly biased, that I'm not allowed to moderate this measurement. And similar, if we had a moderator on our team that happens to be affiliated with DMB or L Acoustics, those persons would not be able to moderate measurements for their respective brands. And so we really try to have safeguards in place to make all of this as neutral as possible. And I'm going to take a brief moment to stop there and allow people to ask questions based on the little bit of information that we shared.
Yeah, that's cool. I don't have a question. I think it's cool.
Well, I think most people that we talk about this think it's cool, but its success depends, of course, on users supplying new measurements and whatnot. Because the other thing that we do is, like, we can upvote, right? And
Right.
the reason that we can upvote measurements is because if we have, for example, 10 measurements of the same loudspeaker, we hope that the ultimate contender will automatically float to the top, get the most upvotes, and then become the reference measurement that people go to whenever they run into that particular product in the field, or they want to know what it's supposed to measure like.
Very cool.
The other thing that is maybe a point worth pointing out is that we talked about moderators, we talked about the voting system. We have an exhaustive FAQ on the website. We encourage everybody to look at the FAQ. It addresses most of the questions that you may or may not have. And last but not least, in some cases, the industry already has laboratory grade measurements. And so, what does Tracebook try to achieve when in some cases we already have laboratory grade manufactured data? Well, just to clarify, we don't intend to replace the manufacturers, or we don't intend to provide data that comes even close to laboratory grade data. The subtitle of Tracebook is actionable field data. And so it's data captured by users for users, and it should be captured under certain conditions that make it good enough to be actionable. Good enough for somebody to say, that is loudspeaker X or that is loudspeaker Y, because I know what loudspeaker X or loudspeaker Y measures like. And so we're not trying to replace well-established practices, but the emphasis is on data should be good enough to be actionable. And that is something that you can do in your driveway or in your garden and whatnot. And Nathan has done a great job at providing ample demonstrations under the most exotic circumstances of how you can acquire that actionable data. And, as we say, sharing is caring. Share it with your fellow audio professionals.
Are you finding any data that is incongruent with what the manufacturers are supplying? Are you finding manufacturer data that's questionable?
Well, as a moderator, I can speak to that. As a moderator, I, of course, go out of my way to find references unless it happens to consider products that I'm intimately familiar with. But of course, as a moderator, part of our due diligence is to consult known collateral and cross-reference whether the field measurement can be reconciled with the manufactured data. And if the users capture the data in accordance with our guideline, which we've published, the data tends to be in very good agreement. So much so that the database is now large enough that we have measurements of the same product made on opposite sides of the globe that are in perfectly good agreement with each other, which is a testimony to the measurement procedure that we drafted collectively. Nathan, you want to say something about it?
Yeah, interestingly, we've mostly found validation for manufacturer data. The biggest anything that you might consider incongruent would just be missing data. So there are a lot of speakers that people measure that there is no manufacturer data. I mean, that's a big reason why we created Tracebook. A lot of manufacturers just don't publish this stuff, which makes it tough for us, the end users. You have all the stuff that you need on there to know about, for selecting maybe an amplifier or how much power you're going to need on the show. But when it comes to combining loudspeakers, it's missing a lot of that data. And then there's some weird stuff. You guys know, if you have opened the manufacturer data when it comes to things like GLL files. For some manufacturers, there's some data missing there. And, a common case is L-Acoustics, but I'm sure there are many other brands where it has some of the data, like some magnitude data, but it's missing some phase data. Or in the case of some legacy speakers, a lot of times they have all, like D&B has a lot of their speakers in there, but then they're missing some of the legacy speakers. So I would say the biggest incongruent thing is just like missing data.
Missing data. Great. I see Michael asked a question here. Any manufacturers providing traces straight from are any manufacturers stepping into Tracebook to finish the data they don't have officially released?
Well, here's the funny thing. When we launched this as part of our due diligence process, we reached out, correct me if I'm wrong, Nathan, I think it was 4 weeks before we went live, right? Give or take. But
Sounds right.
we send out an email blast to all manufacturers saying, "Hey guys, this is about to happen, and if you wanna intervene, or if you want something to see changed and whatnot, we want to give you some time to do so." And we received very little feedback. And whatever feedback we received was typically along the lines of, "Hey, this is great." And whatnot. And if you go to the FAQ, you will see, because that is, of course, the pie in the sky. What drove us is like, hey, if the manufacturers see that users are going to supply their own data, they may as well do it themselves.
Yes.
If that means that you're going to get the best possible data. It hasn't happened to as far as I can tell, but we encourage, and we also point this out in the FAQ, we encourage manufacturers to upload their own data sets. Yes, absolutely. That would be, of course, the pie in the sky.
There is one case. One manufacturer has uploaded their own data, and I think it's just one employee who's just acting on his own volition, which, if I'm not wrong, I believe is DB Technologies. And there's just one guy in Italy who's just like, "I love this project. I'm going to upload some stuff," and he did, and it was great. D&B has been really nice that they let me come to their office in Asheville and measure a bunch of stuff, but I have not reached out personally to every manufacturer. So it was nice that they said yes, but I believe DB Technologies is the only actual brand where someone from the company uploaded stuff.
Oh, this is great.
And just for the group to know, if users are affiliated, then they need to disclose their affiliation when they upload a record. And so that other users can see whether this is a data set that is captured by Joe, the sound guy, or whether this is a data set that is provided by somebody that's directly affiliated to your brand. Yep.
Very cool.
Okie dokie.
All right, that was the first half of the chat, and Merlin talked about Tracebook, and thank you, Nathan, as well. And in the second half, I'll release in another video, Merlin talks about AES 75. Really interesting stuff, and thank you for hanging out.